Good morning and welcome everyone on behalf of Andalucía Trade. Thank you so much for being here and taking part of this webinar, which will be focused on the opportunities for the renewable energies companies in the United Kingdom. My name is María Zumárraga. I am the coordinator of market development in the United Kingdom at Andalucía Trade, a company that belongs to the Andalusian government devoted to support the development and internationalization of the Andalusian companies. In a few seconds, my colleague Felipe Martinez, Director of Andalucía Trade's Office in the United Kingdom, will give us some more details about the content of the webinar and will introduce our guest. But before that, I would like to remind you that at the end of the session, you will be able to send your questions and comments to the chat. So you are very welcome to participate and make the most of the webinar. And if you feel it is easier for you, you can send your comment in Spanish and we will translate it into English. I would also like to remember you that this webinar is being recorded and that the video will be available in a few days in Andalucía Trade TV on our website. So thank you so much again, and I hope you will enjoy the webinar. Felipe, please.
Muchas gracias, María. Yo la primera parte de la presentación la voy a hacer en castellano, porque creo que es más cómodo para todos.
Sí.
Y antes de dar paso al ponente, voy a hacer un pequeño comentario sobre la situación actual del Reino Unido como economía. Se puede decir que es la segunda economía de mayor tamaño de Europa, solo por detrás de Alemania, y la sexta de mayor tamaño de todo el mundo. Está dotada de un alto nivel de dinamismo, de robustez, de resiliencia y un alto grado de apertura al exterior. Es altamente dependiente de su sector exterior, como revela su balanza de pagos. Es un país con una superficie geográficamente, en términos geográficos, pequeño. Tiene una superficie algo menos de la mitad de España, pero tiene una alta, pero está densamente poblado. La población total se estima que ya ha superado, a la altura de 2025, los 69 millones de habitantes y mantiene una tendencia creciente, solo interrumpida por la pandemia del COVID-19. Otro rasgo característico de la economía británica es su atractivo para la inversión directa extranjera, y muy especialmente en lo que se refiere a los sectores tecnológicos, la industria farmacéutica, el sector TIC, el sector aeroespacial y el agritech, entre otros muchos. El sector servicios, de manera agregada, explica más de las 3/4 partes del PIB británico y tiene un peso muy significativo en el sector financiero y de seguros, convirtiendo a Londres en una de las principales plazas financieras de todo el planeta. También destacan por su importancia la industria automovilística, las industrias creativas y todas aquellas que tienen una alta intensidad tecnológica, así como la defensa, el aeronáutico y aeroespacial, el sector TIC, los productos químicos o la industria farmacéutica, por citar algunos ejemplos. El Brexit ha tenido un efecto limitado, a efectos de la deslocalización del sector servicios, en contra de los pronósticos que hacían algunos analistas en este sentido. Según el último boletín que publica el Parlamento británico, el PIB británico a la altura del 2024 habría ascendido a algo menos de 3.000 millones de libras esterlinas, y de ellos algo más de un 79% corresponden a actividades que se enmarcan dentro del sector servicios y en torno a un 13,5% corresponden al sector secundario, algo más de un 6% a la construcción y un 0,7% al sector primario. A pesar del escaso peso del sector primario, este es extremadamente productivo, tiene unos niveles de productividad excepcionalmente altos y es capaz de producir alimentos equivalentes al 60% de las necesidades de su mercado doméstico. Tan solo emplea un 1% de la población activa, según datos que nos ofrece el Banco Mundial. Retiene una importancia relativa su cabaña ganadera, especialmente la ovina y la bovina, y es un país con un sector pesquero tradicional, también de cierta relevancia, muy conectado con los mercados europeos. A efectos del sector secundario destacan las industrias aeroespaciales, farmacéuticas, aquellas relacionadas con la defensa, y además cuenta con importantes recursos minerales. Así, por ejemplo, British Petroleum sigue figurando entre los líderes mundiales de la industria petrolera. El sector industrial emplea en torno al 18% de la población activa, pero su aporte al Producto Interior Bruto apenas llega al 17%. Destaca la fabricación de maquinaria diversa, de equipos de transporte, productos químicos. Los sectores que exhiben un mayor vigor y dinamismo son las empresas relacionadas con el sector TIC, la biotecnología, las energías renovables que abordamos aquí en este webinario, e incluso el de la defensa, como refería anteriormente. En el año 2022, el valor total de las ventas de productos de fabricantes británicos ascendió a algo menos de 430.000 millones de libras esterlinas, un 7% más que el dato del año anterior. La fabricación de alimentos siguió siendo la mayor división y representó un 21% del total. En el periodo comprendido entre julio y septiembre de 2023, el sector manufacturero representó el 9,4% de la producción económica total del país. El sector secundario constituye el núcleo duro y la piedra angular de esta economía. Aporta casi un 80% de su Producto Interior Bruto y emplea a un 82% de la mano de obra disponible. Su sector financiero tiene una dimensión muy grande, como es conocido, y es sede de las empresas de mayor tamaño de la industria a escala mundial. En 2023 aportó al PIB en términos absolutos algo menos de 210.000 millones de libras o lo que es lo mismo, un 8,8% en términos relativos. El sector turístico tiene también una importancia muy destacable, representa en torno al 9,5% del Producto Interior Bruto y generó más de 237.000 millones de libras esterlinas en ese mismo año. En cuanto al PIB per cápita, se sitúa en algo menos de los 50.000 dólares americanos, según datos del Banco Mundial, y para el año 2023. Hay que señalar que la distribución de la renta es poco uniforme a lo largo del país, localizándose en el sudeste de Inglaterra, particularmente en Londres y en los conocidos como home countries, los niveles más altos de renta. Sin perjuicio del anterior, el Reino Unido mantiene una renta por habitante relativamente alta dentro del contexto europeo, aunque bastante por debajo de otras economías de tamaño considerablemente menor y muy concretamente la irlandesa. El nivel de desarrollo socioeconómico presenta también grandes disparidades a lo ancho del país. Respecto a la situación económica actual, simplemente mencionar algunas de las variables macroeconómicas más importantes. La inflación tras una fase muy inflacionista, motivada por los efectos de la guerra de Ucrania, entre otros factores, el IPC se situó en septiembre de 2025 en el 4,1%, lo cual está bastante lejos, digamos, del objetivo de inflación que se ha marcado el gobierno y el Banco de Inglaterra. Estamos en un contexto de inflación, como digo, bastante alto y el gobierno está aplicando políticas monetarias que pretenden mantener el valor de la divisa al tiempo que controlar el crecimiento de los precios. El tipo de interés del Banco de Inglaterra o el tipo de interés de esta entidad es del 4% actualmente. Se han producido sucesivos recortes en esta variable y se espera que siga una tendencia descendente a medida que la inflación esté más controlada. La tasa de paro se sitúa actualmente en torno al 4,8%, según los últimos datos que nos ofrece la ONS, la Office for National Statistics, y el Reino Unido mantiene de manera persistente tasas de desempleo muy bajas. El déficit y la deuda pública neta son del 4 y del 4 y 96,4% respectivamente, es el dato que corresponde a agosto de 2025, y esto supone una caída respecto al dato correspondiente al año inmediatamente anterior. El comportamiento de otras macromagnitudes, según los datos que nos ofrece la ONS, se estima que el PIB británico creció un 0,3% en los 3 meses anteriores a agosto de 2025 y en comparación con el trimestre anterior. En el segundo trimestre del año en curso, el PIB en términos nominales creció un 0,3% frente al 0,7% correspondiente al primer trimestre. En términos interanuales, el crecimiento del PIB británico a la altura del segundo trimestre de 2025 fue de 1,2% y gran parte de este crecimiento se explica, en buena medida, a partir del buen comportamiento que ha exhibido el sector servicios. Y bien, tras estas breves notas, vamos a dar paso ahora al ponente previsto para el día de hoy, que es Barnaby Wooten. Voy a hacer la presentación en inglés. Barnaby Wooten is the Head of Flexibility and Grid at Renewables UK, where he leads a strategy on the technologies and infrastructure needed to deliver a net zero power system. His work spans green hydrogen, long-duration storage, flexibility, and electricity networks, shaping the market and regulatory frameworks that enable investment in clean energy. He sits on several government delivery boards, advises on system reform, and regularly represents the UK renewables industry in international forums. Barnaby has played a central role in expanding Renewable UK's remit beyond wind into new sectors, building partnerships across governments, regulators, developers, and investors. He's a recognized industry voice, contributing at major conferences in the media with a particular focus on the opportunities and challenges of the energy transition. Prior to his current role, he headed Renewables UK policy and regulation team and worked at the CBI on energy, climate, and market policy. He's passionate about accelerating the clean energy transition and building resilient, flexible systems for the future. Now is it over to you, Barnaby.
Good morning. Excuse me. Good morning, and thank you very much for having me. I'm really excited to be joining you this morning. I was just sort of reflecting on about 18 months ago. I was actually in Andalusia, close to Verre de la Frontera, which I hope I didn't pronounce awfully, but had a lovely holiday and saw many wind turbines and taught my 2-year-old girl to say wind turbine every time she saw one, which turned out to be an awful lot. So I'm really excited to be able to talk to you all today on this subject. I'll just load up my presentation. So I won't speak for too long, but what I really wanted to do was give you a sense of where the renewable sector is in the UK right now, kind of the direction of travel, what's going on, and then hopefully have a conversation about kind of opportunities that there are for companies across the board to join in. Very briefly, Renewable UK, for those that don't know us, we are a trade association representing around 500 companies across the entire value chain of the renewables industry. So we represent companies from the development end, the global national developers on offshore and onshore wind farms, right the way through the value chain, so law, finance, and then right the way through to kind of the supply chain and the people who make the ladders and the safety harnesses for the people going up the ladders for the wind turbine. So it's the whole sector is someone that we represent. So what I want to talk about then is the sort of the transition and the journey that we've gone on as a nation in the UK. And yeah, the kind of headline is that renewables are now the single largest source of generation in the UK, but that is a very recent thing. The chart on the left kind of shows the journey we've been on, and back at the beginning of the millennium, renewables made up a tiny fraction of the generation. The 3 green sections here represent from the bottom nuclear, coal, and gas. And so we were very dominant on fossil fuels, and particularly coal was making up around 40% of our generation back in 2000, and coal stayed on the system, making up around 40% of our power until about 2012. And at that point we introduced there was the EU ETS had been in force, and we introduced the UK's carbon price support to top up the cost of carbon, as well as the various EU regulations around running hours for fossil fuel plant. And as a result of that, we have driven coal off the system. And actually, we shut down our last coal plant in the UK at the beginning of this year. And coal only generated 1% of our power in 2024. So coal is now gone, and we use gas as the kind of main fossil fuel source today. But over that period as well, we've seen a huge increase in renewable generation. So from the mid-2000s, we introduced the renewables obligation, which is a subsidy regime to essentially top up revenues for onshore, offshore wind and solar. And then in 2015, we launched the very first of the contracts for difference auctions. So the contracts for difference provides a fixed price for renewable generators. And that really did kickstart the growth of renewable generation in the UK. And you can see from this chart that wind, which is onshore wind, is the light blue, offshore wind is the dark blue. Wind now makes up close to 30% of the UK's generation mix. And that is going to continue to grow. And at the same time, we've seen solar growing. Solar is the kind of the bright yellow, I guess. And then as well as we have thermal renewables, which is biomass, biomass, particularly Drax power station, which is an old coal-fired power station, now runs entirely on biomass. So renewables as a whole make up over 50% of the UK's generation mix, with really offshore wind and onshore wind leading the way. What that has done is to drive down power sector emissions. So back when we were we were reliant on coal and gas, we were emitting around 500 tons of carbon dioxide for every gigawatt hour of power produced. And that is now at a quarter of that level. So it's just under 150 tons per gigawatt hour. So we have dramatically shifted and driven down emissions from the power sector in the UK. And that has been the main driving force for overall emissions reductions in the UK. And that is what's driving us towards a net zero economy is the goal by 2050. But before we get to 2050, we're going to get to 2030. And when the Labour government came into power in July last year, they had 5 missions that they said they wanted to pursue, one of which was the Clean Power Superpower mission. So the overarching goal to drive clean power and drive the economic benefits of clean power. And the Secretary of State, Ed Miliband, has been behind this, and it is really his driving mission as Secretary of State. So Clean Power 2030, what that means is that it's technical, but it's important for the sector to understand, is that so by 2030, Great Britain will generate enough clean power to meet our total annual electricity demand, backed up by unabated gas. So that means that we will be generating more clean power than the UK demands, and any excess power we generate, from fossil fuel gas, that amount will be exported. So we're going to be making much greater use of the interconnectors to export power. And overall, from the generation in the UK, 95% of the generation, whether exported or not, will be clean power. So down to 5% gas from around 30% today. And that gas will stay on the system for those periods when we really need it. So a huge shift in the generation mix. And what this looks like is a lot of work. So I don't know how well you can read these charts. These charts are all from the Clean Power Action Plan. On the left-hand side, what you can see is the generation capacity, so the boiler bay capacity of our generation stations. And the first thing to really notice is that we are going to have much greater capacity. So we're going to be effectively doubling the capacity of power generation on the system. The turquoise blue, the bright turquoise blue, is the gas. So we're not really going to be shifting the potential capacity of gas on the system. We roughly have about 35 gigawatts of gas generation. And we're going to need that online for those periods when the wind doesn't blow. But what you can see is that the bottom three sections, which are offshore wind, onshore wind, and solar, are going to massively increase. And those are the charts on the right hand side, the dials. So the pale blue on the chart is the current generation capacity. The turquoise on those is what is currently consented or in construction. And then the white and the dark blue is what we need to build to get to clean power. So there is a huge amount more development of renewables that we need to drive forward. We've got a huge amount of work over just 4 years. So over the next couple of years, we're going to have further contracts for different auctions. So AR7, allocation round 7, is taking place as we speak. The projects have entered that, are currently going through the project assessment phase, and then the actual auction window itself will be in the new year. That will need to secure potentially 10 gigawatts of offshore wind, around 5 gigawatts of onshore wind, and another 5 of solar. So these are going to be huge auctions to get the projects underway to get to 2030. And once those projects have got through the auction and then be successful, they then need to get built. So we really need to think about how we're going to ramp up the supply chain and who is going to be delivering this vast amount of renewable energy that we need to build over the next few years. And after the AR7, we then got AR8, and AR8 will be taking place towards the end of 2026. And the AR8 is our last opportunity to secure the projects and capacity to reach 2030. So anything we don't build or get through the forthcoming auction will need to get through the following. So a huge amount of activity that we're looking at in the UK to drive this forward. And what that will result in, you can see in the middle chart, is a huge amount more generation, particularly from offshore wind. So offshore wind, you can see in the middle chart, is the dark blue, this section here, which is going to be well over 50% of the UK's generation is going to come from offshore wind. And what that will also mean, as well as onshore wind is here and solar is here, vast amounts of power from renewables. So we are also thinking about how do we ramp up short duration storage? What role will batteries play in order to manage stability of the system? And then also we're in the process of a new long duration storage subsidy regime being developed right now. So by early 2026, we'll have a new regime, a cap and floor regime in place for pumped hydro storage and other forms of long duration storage to help manage a high renewable system. So there's a huge amount going on in this space. And all of this is going to require a huge number of people to do it. So this is just a few snapshots from our recent wind skills intelligence report. So every year as Renewable UK, we look at the skills in the sector, who's employed in the sector. And really the thing to take from this is that that the onshore and offshore wind force already stand at over 55,000, and that's going to continue to grow. And we're going to need more people in order to deliver these hugely ambitious targets. We're going to need more people, we're going to need more companies, supply chain coming into the sector to deliver this vast amount of both investment and activity that is going to be happening in order to meet Clean Power 2030. I won't go through all of the numbers and figures in this chart, but what you can see is that in areas like Scotland and the north of England, a huge amount of activity is going to be going on, and it's going to be absolutely critical to the sort of the future of the sector. And I've got some at the end of this presentation. I've got the links to this paper, so I think that's going to be sent out, and you can go and read that in your own time. So there is a huge amount to be done, but it's not without its challenges. And again, there's lots of opportunity to support the UK in tackling these issues. we're building more renewables, more energy infrastructure than we've built in decades. We need to work with communities, we need to work with nature to understand the impacts that these projects will have on communities and nature, but while at the same time making sure we are consenting and getting these projects through the appropriate regulatory hurdles at pace. So it's about working with communities, understanding the impacts that these projects will have on people, on the environment, and while making sure we can address those challenges, mitigate them, and get the projects delivered. I've already talked about the workforce and supply chain. We need to build, deliver, manage, maintain, ultimately at some point decommission these projects. And one of the other challenges in the UK, as I'm sure you're aware, is we have very high electricity prices. So we need to demonstrate the value that we're bringing to communities and to the workforce through these projects. So there's a lot of work that we're doing as a sector to kind of show how we're going to be positively impacting communities through bringing new jobs and employees to the sector. We work obviously with other infrastructure users. A particular challenge is the civil and military radar side of things, but there are other seabed users, for example. But wind turbines in particular, very large, getting ever larger, spinning around, do cause a bit of complications with both civil and military radar. So we actually now spend a lot of time working with both the Ministry of Defence and civil aviation authorities to ensure that we can coexist with other kind of users of the airspace. But that cohabitation extends, as I say, to seabed users, fisheries, and many other sectors. So that's something we're really thinking about. As with every country that is trying to decarbonize, there are challenges with the grid. We're building huge numbers of projects. We need to not just build the projects, we need to connect these projects to the grid very quickly, and then we need to get that power to where it's needed. And we're seeing huge amounts of constraints on the UK's electricity grid. Lots of offshore wind and onshore wind being built in Scotland, but we don't have the network to bring that to the demand in England. So we're turning down lots of wind turbines in order to manage the grid. So we need to build more grid, manage the communities, but also maintain sort of the flexibility and reliance on the system. So that's something we're doing a lot of work on as well, is ensuring that we get that innovation and investment into things like storage, flexible assets, consumer-led storage, so customers using electric vehicles, heat pumps more intelligently. And all of this at the same time is being underpinned by a huge amount of market reform in the UK. So lots of work going on looking at how we manage the electricity market to bring down costs, ensuring we have energy security, so both relying less on foreign imports of gas, but also maintaining a secure energy system. And ultimately, we need to do a lot of work to maintain public support for the net zero transition and decarbonisation generally, as politically in the UK, electricity prices are absolutely critical, and people are seeing in parts of the country huge changes to their communities where they haven't seen electricity infrastructure previously. So we're trying to manage that and help communities understand kind of what changes are happening and why, and hopefully gather their support for what is a hugely important part of our efforts to tackle climate change. So I will leave it at that. Very happy to take any questions about sort of the opportunities there are, what's going on, or challenges that we face, and how colleagues from Andalusia can help us. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Barnaby. Now it's time. Thank you for your presentation. It's now time for Q&As, and therefore, should any of the members of the audience want to ask a question to our speaker, please do use the chat for that purpose, and I shall read them to him. If not, in the meantime, from as a government organisation, our main aim is to help Andalusian companies establish business relations with those in the UK. And from that perspective, and from the perspective of the Andalusian companies, what do you think that are might be the areas which are more likely to generate business opportunities for the Andalusian companies when it comes to this industry. And if this business cooperation between companies of both countries is possible, was the most likely way to build it?
So I think the areas that we are, I think the most opportunity is in the supply chain. So as I say, we know what we need to build, and we've got lots of developers out there already from across the world. But I think the challenge we have is finding the people, the companies then actually deliver the projects. So kind of the big turbine manufacturers, tower manufacturers, they're kind of few and far between, but they're probably well established. Then how do we actually get these delivered on the ground? And bringing in skilled, knowledgeable people from around the world who have already delivered, at pace, at scale in other parts of the world, just to help build up the UK's capacity and knowledge is going to be really, really critical. I think that it's just that the supply chain challenge and finding the people and companies to deliver this is going to be really, really critical. And I think it's probably not at the developer level, it's not at the kind of the tier one turbine manufacturers, but it's everybody else, from the people doing sort of the groundworks, site investigations, foundations, even sort of the kind of consenting and environmental assessments, all of that piece, really we have to do at pace. And I think anyone who can come to the UK and kind of show that they've got experience and knowledge of doing this is going to be very welcome. In terms of how best to do that, I mean, obviously I would say, Renewable UK, we run lots of events, we have lots of sort of project intelligence, so we can help facilitate that. But I really think it is probably a case of that there are lots of sort of conferences and events that go on across the UK, and people are really keen to meet and explore opportunities for partnerships. So I probably would say sort of, firstly, keep an eye on what's going on, look for those opportunities, and kind of explore the kind of the project development, particularly off the back of the forthcoming auction rounds, where we'll see which projects are going to be built. And then come here and kind of make those connections. And as Renewable UK, we can help facilitate that. And we have lots of events, and we have lots of event partnerships, from Wind Europe right the way through to kind of local events in the UK where we can help. And I'm sure we can work with others to kind of help build those relationships.
Thank you, Warnaby. Additionally, as you may know, the solar technology is the key category when it comes to the Andalusian companies or companies involved in operating in this industry. Do you think that is there an appetite in the UK for the technology related to the solar energy?
Yes, absolutely. So I don't know so much about solar energy, I should say, but we have got to, as the chart showed earlier, we are going to triple the amount of solar that we have on the system. So I think we've got about 8 gigawatts on the system now. I can't remember the exact figures from the charts, but we need to get to kind of 24, 25 gigawatts of solar. So tripling solar energy so there's a huge opportunity. And again, it's I think, like most people, we're probably buying our solar panels from China, like others, but all of the other stuff that goes alongside that, the power systems controls, how these all function, and again, the kind of I want to say the racks, the things the solar panels sit on, whatever they're called. Sorry. All of that sort of stuff can be kind of manufactured closer to home. So I think the solar sector is going to be booming over the coming years as we triple capacity. And again, I think anyone who can bring the kind of the capability, the expertise, and the capacity to help deliver that is going to be very, very welcome.
Okay, thank you. You mentioned that in the challenges section, you covered that topic, but we'd be most interested to know what are the actual needs of the renewable energy industry, if it's the workforce, the need of hire more people, their technology, they are needing of getting more investment? What are the actual needs of the industry at the moment?
I think a key one is workforce. I mean, lots of these, lots of the kind of the skills that we need, is not, can't be conjured up overnight. We need to train people up, and that takes time. So if you think kind of particularly the more technical engineering sorts of skills, that is a university degree and then further training. Well, if someone entering university today, they're not going to be sort of trained up and kind of working until basically 2030. So while we obviously, I think like all nations want to kind of develop our own domestic workforce, we need to fill the gap at some, in the very short term. So I think, finding companies that can bring the skills and the workforce to deliver these projects today is going to be absolutely critical. And also the companies, it's just, even with all the people we have working, all the companies that we have, as I say, we've still got to deliver a huge amount, and the UK currently, I don't think, has the capability or the capacity to do that. So certainly over the next kind of 5-10 years, we're going to be needing to look elsewhere to drive the incredibly ambitious targets that we have. I think on finance, I think there is a lot of interest in this sector still. The renewables industries in the UK are supported by the contracts for difference, which is a very secure form of revenue. So there continues to be huge amounts of sort of interest from the finance sector. And as I was speaking to someone last night, and actually where people are really interested is the grid side of things as well. So the grid is a regulated monopoly. So we only have 3 TOs in the UK. But we need, as well as sort of the physical wires, we also need the systems controls, things like synchronous condensers or the power system electronics and the grid forming technologies in order to maintain a stable and reliable grid. So I think bringing that sort of technology and innovation to the UK is going to be really critical as well. And the regulator Ofgem is really interested in sort of innovation and innovative technologies that can help provide system stability.
Thank you. Additionally, besides being trade promotion agency, we are also FDR traction agency belonging to the Andalusian government, and so we are aware that probably is not your area, but if you can comment on something on that, we'd be interested in knowing if there is an appetite for investors willing to, British investors willing to get involved in projects carried out overseas and in Spain in particular. Do you know anything about it?
I don't know enough about so UK investors looking overseas. I don't know enough about it. I think many of our investors are global in the UK, so I think they're always looking at kind of the global opportunities. And despite the huge ambition, I think actually there are some challenges to the UK market and not least politically right now. So I think many investors are looking kind of overseas and where is their opportunity to invest in infrastructure in areas where it's demanded or there's new innovations in the markets. So I think the investors that we speak to are always thinking and looking globally, but I can't really say more than that, I'm afraid. I'm not expert on that international investment side.
Okay, thank you. I did encourage the audience to ask questions, but they look rather shy. So, but if as mentioned at the beginning of the webinar, the recording of this session will be available on Andalusia Trade website shortly. And also we can also forward Barnaby's presentation to your email upon request. And so if that is the case, please do send us an email to reinounido@andalusiatrade.es. And if there are no further questions, we can wrap this webinar up. We can wrap this webinar up. But before we say goodbye to all, I would like to thank Barnaby once again for supporting us in putting together these events. If you want to share your details, or I can do it myself on your behalf, if you like. And then, as I said, I can pass on I can pass your presentation on to those willing to get it.
Yeah, please do share my details. Very happy for that.
Yeah, and if not, there are no further questions, we can yeah, we can leave it here. And yeah, I think somebody is typing something. Yeah, Maria Serrano says, thank you for your presentation. She represents a manufacturer of heat pumps for DHW, and he asked if there is a financial aid program specifically for DHW heat pumps, and if is there a link or website where she can find this information?
So there is a program of financial support for people looking to invest in selling domestic heat pumps. It'll be there will be information on the UK government website. I couldn't tell you exactly where it is, but I think if you kind of search so UK government heat pump subsidy, I'm sure there is something out there. I can have a look and send something around. I'd see if I can find the exact page. But yes, there is a program of support for domestic heat pumps in the UK.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Any further questions? Right. So we can share your details with the attendees, and then if they've got any further questions, they can contact you direct or through us, or as they wish. So we can say, wrap these webinar up and say goodbye to all. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Bye now.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.